Okay, we have Jeanette and we have Margaret, and they work a company. It's called J.K. Belz and Associates. And what attracted me to reach out to them is, I'm in the world of business and entities and lawsuits and liabilities and all of that, and they offer a service called Mediation, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. So welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thank you.
Because I think a lot of people, if they understood that this is available, could avoid a lot in the future. And so whichever one of you wants to share what does mediation mean and why is that important to me?
Sure. Good morning. Thank you for having us today. Mediation is a voluntary process. It's really about having a conversation regarding a dispute that people may have, a wide variety of disputes. It's led by a third-party neutral person, which would be someone like Margaret or myself, called a mediator. And the idea is to talk about what issues brought you there today, understand a little bit about the issue from each person's perspective, and to try to understand what your interests are relative to that position that you might have, one way or the other, and to try to explore options for resolving the dispute and hopefully coming to some kind of an agreement at the end.
So in the mediation, when we talk about that's broad, but you get right into, you do elder care. So tell me some of the things that you mediate.
Well, there's really all kinds of mediation. Elder care happens to be one of the areas in which both Jeanette and I practice. We actually do have separate companies. Mm-hmm. She's with J.K. Belz, and I have my own Crowley Legal Solutions mediation company. Elder care is one area that Jeanette and I are both passionate about because we have an aging population and lots of things come up. So, for example, mom might break her hip. Once she's out of the hospital, it may be that she can't live at home anymore alone. And often you have her children maybe not agreeing on, well, I think mom should come live with me, or I think we should put her in a care facility. And they're just really having difficulty getting on the same page. That's where elder care mediation could come in. You just get everybody at the same table, sitting down and talking about, what's important here? What does mom want? And as a mediator, your job is to help people find areas where they agree. Because often once they come, they haven't even sat down and talked.
Right.
And often areas where they agree come to light. So you do that, and then you look at where they're not agreeing. And that's really where you focus your mediation on is, let's talk that through. And as people talk it through, they often realize, we really can be on the same page. So
there's more that we agree to than we agree not, but it takes somebody, a third party, to really pull those pieces out. And so I know you do workplace mediation. How does that apply?
Workplace mediation could be a lot of different things. You could talk about bringing people together to discuss a partnership. You could have issues with your vendors or your customers, some kind of a dispute there. You could have a dispute with your landlord. So there's a lot of different areas in workplace and really in life in general.
Like divorce?
I was just thinking child custody and visitation has to be a big one.
It's really a big one. Actually, that is one of the few areas of mediation that has been legislated. The legislature mandates mediation in child custody cases because I think they understand that, especially when it comes to family, the court environment is really not the best place to be. It's so much better if parents of children can sit down and talk through, here's how we want to parent our children, after divorce. That's really a big change, or after we're separating. So it's one of the areas that it's actually mandated.
So this is really communication. Before it ends up in a lawsuit, before it ends up ugly in court, before it ends up in a lot of those places nobody really wants to go. And so how would somebody even know you guys exist? I mean...
Well, I'm wondering, too, we haven't really talked about what qualifies you to be mediators.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because I mean, if I'm going to use a mediator, I want to know what your qualifications are.
And qualifications for being a mediator are that what you want to look for is someone who's had mediation training. Margaret and I have probably had somewhere about 180 hours of mediation training in a variety of areas, including things like elder and workplace, divorce as an example. We also volunteer with our peers through the Neighborhood Mediation Center, and we're members of the Nevada Dispute Resolution Coalition. So we also do a lot in the community to try to raise awareness about mediation. We would come to your organization, nonprofit community organization. We've got PowerPoint, and we can do a presentation. So just sort of lifting all the knowledge out there about what mediation is. So
see, I always thought that the court appointed the mediator. Like, I thought there's a lawsuit or there's a divorce and you're in court and you can't agree and they say you guys need to go through mediation, and that the mediator was provided by the court. I didn't even know that you could go out to a private company and hire a mediator. Like, did you know that? Of course you did.
No, that's why I invited him here.
Like, I really didn't know that. So people actually do that. They seek out their own mediator.
Yes.
Now, both parties have to agree to mediation.
Mediation is voluntary. That's a really important part of mediation, is that it's voluntary.
Is mediation expensive?
Mediation is, as far, if you're looking at resolving a conflict, it's probably one of your least expensive options. My background happens to be as an attorney.
Attorneys are expensive.
Attorneys
There's
are
no question.
very expensive, and the process as you file a lawsuit, go through all the necessary steps, discovery and pleadings, very, very expensive. And it also really positions people. So by the time you get to the courtroom, the dispute has grown into something that may have started small and it's now huge.
Yeah, because it becomes so emotional.
Yes.
You know, the whole thing is so emotional and time consuming. And it's not even about the money you're paying the lawyer. It's about all the time you're losing not working. But anyway, what's the cost of mediation in comparison? So, like, can you give us an idea of per hour what mediation fees would be versus maybe what attorney fees would be? That might encourage people. Is there some general...
You know, mediation fees, just like legal fees, really have a range.
Okay.
I mean, I would say they probably range from maybe $150 to, you know, there are mediators who charge $400 an hour. They may be former judges or, you know.
So a lot like lawyers. I mean, you can get a lawyer for $150 or $500.
Super high powered. But I think what the big difference is that mediation is going to take you so much less time.
Exactly.
I mean, you could mediate something in 4 hours or 6 hours that if it progressed to court, it could take 3 years and thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
So that's where the real savings is.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting. I think when people get together and they realize that the clock is ticking, that sometimes that can motivate people to come to understand the issues a little more quickly, because it's a process where part of it is going through the past to understand it, but a great deal of it is to look to the future to try to understand what the problem is and then how to address it and maybe how to resolve it.
Well,
the other thing about mediation is it's really empowering, and I want to make sure before our time is done that we really talk about that a little bit, because by sitting at a table with other people, with a third party neutral that doesn't act like a judge, isn't in any way taking testimony or anything like that, it's really very empowering because the people come to the table with the idea that we want to try to figure something out here. We might be positioned right now, but our goal is to try to come to some kind of an agreement. You know, if you've drawn the line in the sand and there's absolutely no way, then don't waste your time with mediation.
Right.
But on the other hand, if there's even an inkling in there that, well, okay, if I sit down, you know, I might be able to think of something, that's really where there's great opportunity, because mediation's all about not only speaking your piece, but also really listening to what the other people have to say. And sometimes, as Margaret said, you find out that, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way, or I didn't know that was your biggest concern. Are you kidding? I don't care about that.
Right. Well, and it's negotiate. You guys are master negotiators, and most people have no idea how to negotiate or how to determine what their position is and so on. And so I think it's a phenomenal service because every one of us has experienced the back end of ending up in a lawsuit and all this other ugly, ugly stuff that, to me, you guys are going to make unnecessary. So
absolutely. And I think one of the other pieces that ties into that that we'd love to mention is what's different about mediation versus litigation is that mediation allows you to preserve a relationship.
Yeah.
So especially if you're working together, or it's your customer, you can preserve that relationship instead of being in litigation and,
Right.
loathing each other.
Where does somebody find more information about you?
We both have websites. Mine is www.jkbelz.com.
And mine is www.crowleymediation.com.
Great. Well, we want to thank you for being here.
Can I ask him one more
Yes.
question?
Well-
I'm just wondering what the average time of mediation would be. I mean, is it 4 hours? Is it 10 hours? At what point do you say nobody's budging and we can't mediate anymore?
I think it depends on the complexity of the case. If you're talking about a simple case, I mean, you could even mediate a dog bark situation in your neighborhood versus something much more complex. So I think it varies, but you probably will at a minimum sit down 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes, for example, in divorce, you may sit down over a period of time, several times.
Like once a week or something?
Because people need to do homework, they need to understand, they need to go talk to their tax accountant and understand tax ramifications, those kind of things. So,
Okay.
But we can tell you it's amazing what people can accomplish in 3 hours.
Right. Wow. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Great to know you exist. And guess what? We're done.